for history on Tuesday, December 2nd. We're going to begin with the Midwest region. So, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. All right, let's do it backwards. Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota. All right, now for your next quiz, you will need to know both the Northeast and the Southeast region again still, and for the test, which will be the week after distance learning towards the end of the week. So, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida. All right? Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. All right, so make sure you're studying those. They are in the back of your history books if you want to look there. Also, after I read today, I'm going to start reviewing with you for the quiz that you will take when you come back. I think it's either Tuesday or Wednesday. Can't remember for sure. I will have to let you know later in the week what day it's going to be on. But let's begin on page 184, at the top of page 184, and we're going to finish up reading about Lewis and Clark. So if you need to pause the video while you find page 184, please do so. Along the way, they met many different Native American tribes. Mr. Clark noticed that most of them were friendly. Having Sacagawea and her son along made these tribes feel at ease. He wrote in his journal, "No woman ever accompanies a war party of Indians." In other words, that's why they trusted them, because Sacagawea and her baby were with them, so they knew they weren't coming to make war. Sacagawea helped the Native Americans know that Lewis and Clark were not bringing warriors to fight with them. After they finished crossing the mountain range, they stopped to make some canoes and left their horses with a nearby tribe. "Please care for our horses till we return," Mr. Lewis asked them. The tribe agreed, and the group again was on its way down the river. The rivers on this side of the mountains were flowing the direction Lewis and Clark wanted to go. Remember before they'd been having to row upstream against the current? Well, now they're going with the current. And I lost my place. They did not have to go against the current. Instead, they had to deal with fast-flowing rapids taking them too quickly down the river. Finally, on November 15th, 1805, the Corps of Discovery reached the Pacific Ocean. One of the men wrote in his journal, "Great joy in camp as we are in view of this great Pacific Ocean, which we have been so long anxious to see." Many, such as Sacagawea, had never seen an ocean. Top of the next page. Winter was coming quickly. They needed to build a fort. They voted on a spot near the Columbia River and began building before the heavy snows. The Corps named it Fort Clatsop in honor of the Clatsop Indians who lived nearby. They traded with the tribe, hunted for food, and rested through the winter. Now they had to prepare for their return trip. Lewis and Clark decided that before they left Fort Clatsop, they needed to make 300 pairs of moccasins. Why so many? they realized their moccasins were only lasting a few days due to water, cactus needles, and rough ground. They would be better prepared for the trip home. So they'd have spare moccasins since they couldn't just run to the store and buy some. Going home. In March of 1806, the group headed east. It was time to go home. Again, they had to cross rivers and mountains. They battled snow, sickness, hunger, and mosquitoes. When they reached the Shoshone land where they had hidden their boats and supplies, they dug up the boats and were on their way. To cover more ground, the team split up into two smaller groups. Mr. Lewis led one group and Mr. Clark led the other. They each found more waterways, plants, and animals. After 40 days apart, the two groups came together again. The Corps of Discovery finished their amazing journey on September 23rd, 1806. This group had traveled thousands of miles and had been gone for over 2 years. They brought back news of 200 new plants and 120 new animals that the people of the East had never seen before. They brought back seeds of new flowers, trees, and herbs. They told stories of bison, mountain goats, mule deer, and sea otters. President Jefferson, who had feared the men were either lost or dead, was thrilled to see the things they brought back and to listen to their adventures. President Jefferson said, "Never did a similar event excite more joy through the United States." Lewis and Clark were given land and money for their part of the trip. Soon, many people were making their own journeys across the Louisiana Territory to find wealth and to make a home for themselves in the West. Stop and think. Imagine if Lewis and Clark only came back with news of all the bad things that happened to them. Do you think the people would have wanted to go to this new land? The Bible tells of 12 spies who were sent to the promised land of Canaan. This is in Numbers chapter 13 in the Bible. 2 men saw the good things God had prepared for them in Canaan, while the other 10 men reported only about the giants and walled cities. Which one of these groups do you think Lewis and Clark were like? So did they give the good report, like the 2 men, or the bad report, like the other 10? They gave the good report, didn't they? All right, after the trip. After the trip, President Jefferson chose Meriwether Lewis to be the governor of the new Louisiana Territory. Mr. Lewis had a very difficult task before him. More and more pioneers were moving into the new territory, and there was often trouble between the pioneers and the Native Americans. William Clark's life was much different than Meriwether Lewis's. Mr. Clark became the general of the militia in the Louisiana Territory and later worked with Native Americans who lived there. He was very successful and soon invited Sacagawea, her husband, and Pompey to move to his town. Mr. Clark made sure Pompey received a good education. When Sacagawea died, William Clark and his wife adopted her 2 children. Meriwether Lewis and William Clark had no idea that their lives would cross paths after their time in the Army. They did not know that their friendship would become an important part of history, but together they explored the West and helped make it possible for America to expand. All right, so Meriwether Lewis became governor of the Louisiana Territory, and William Clark became the general of the militia for the Louisiana Territory. All right, let's look at this comprehension check next. Who was the Shoshone woman who agreed to help the Corps of Discovery? Sacagawea. Sacagawea. Hopefully that's what you said. What made the Native American tribes feel at ease when they saw the Corps of Discovery? Because Sacagawea and her baby son were with them, so they knew they were not coming to fight. What ocean did the Corps of Discovery see? At the end of their journey, they had reached the Pacific Ocean. What did Lewis and Clark name their winter fort? Has a funny name, Fort Clatsop. Fort Clatsop. Who became governor of the new Louisiana Territory? Meriwether Lewis. And who became general of the militia for the Louisiana Territory? William Clark. William Clark. Okay, so let me review with you just a little bit for the quiz that's going to be coming up when we go back again. Who is the explorer who became governor of the Louisiana Territory? Meriwether Lewis. The governor was Meriwether Lewis. Who is the Shoshone guide and translator for the expedition through the Louisiana Territory? Sacagawea. Sacagawea. Who's the explorer who became the general of the militia in the Louisiana Territory? William Clark. William Clark. My bad. William Clark. And what was Clark's nickname for Sacagawea's son? Pompey. Remember, it meant little chief in Shoshone. Little chief. Pompey. When the group reached the west coast, what was the name of the ocean they saw? The Pacific Ocean. All right. And seeing Sacagawea and her baby with the expedition helped the Native Americans know that the men were coming, how? To fight or in peace? They were coming in peace, right? Because of the baby. They knew that Sacagawea was a woman and her baby. They were coming in peace. Sacagawea was part of the Shoshone tribe, and the Shoshone tribe was known for raising what? Horses. Remember, they were going to see the Shoshone tribe to get horses for the rest of their expedition? Horses. Shoshone tribe was known for racing horses. Sacagawea and her were asked to guide and interpret for the expedition through the Louisiana Territory? Sacagawea and her husband, who was a Frenchman. All right. Thomas Jefferson called the group of explorers what? This group of explorers that were sent to explore the Louisiana Territory, what were they called? The Corps of Discovery. The Corps of Discovery. All right, and who did he choose to explore this territory? President Jefferson chose two men, Lewis and Clark. Meriwether Lewis, who became the governor, and William Clark, who became the general of the militia. And then don't forget, you need to know that map also. You can find those in the back of your book if you still do not know them. All right. Do not forget to do reading. Read your book report book. That's the only reading you have for this week.